Well, if you got a dollar on just a lousy dime, know that I got rhythm that could suit your budget fine.
It's Trusty, and I'm here to do a shop with me video. Haven't done one in a while, and I'm not sure if this one is going to work particularly well, but I'm in a location that I've done a shop along with me before. If I remember correctly, this one does not have music, so I'm hoping that I do not have to overdub this when I am done. But just in case, we shall see. So we are going into Past and Present, which is located in North Aurora, Illinois. There are 4 pretty major vintage and vintage-inspired decor stores in about a 5-mile radius, all centered around North Aurora. And that also happens to be where I live. So I've got quite a few to choose from. This does happen to be one of the smallest, but, you know, good things come in small packages. And so it doesn't have as many vendors, but this is pretty much more specialized and concentrated in true vintage and not as much of the vintage inspired Magnolia Farms look. So we shall see if that holds true. Been probably a month or 2 since I've been here, and we shall check it out. Shop with me at Past and Present in North Aurora. So as I said, this is the Past and Present shops. This is the outside. We did have some recent snow. We're outside Chicago, so snow is not particularly rare, but we didn't really get a lot. It just happened that we just got some, so everything is still freshly covered. This way is the ramp. The ramp is pretty steep, so I'm actually going to go the other way and go up the stairs, because I'm assuming everything's going to be pretty icy. But see some of the primitive and definitely rustic decor that they have on the outdoors, and we shall see what they have inside. Okay, one of the cool displays they've got here in this booth is all this ruby red glass set up, you know, pretty much for Christmas, could be for Valentine's Day, although they got some snowflakes mixed in. But wanted to highlight a couple of the pieces in here. So this is the souvenir glass. This one happens to be from Nashville, 1897. Has Mother on the top. Kind of cool. It's got the ruby flash red on the top that then been engraved. You can feel that this is cut into the glass, so it's cut to clear. But then it has the clear bottom and the clear handle that's been applied. The bottom is pressed glass. It doesn't seem sharp enough for cut glass, and if you look really close, you can see the seam there. So it is molded, but the handle does appear to be applied. So it's just a cool looking piece. I've seen these before, nice like old souvenir pieces, 19th century. Usually they're all red, or at least the ones I've seen have all been red. So this is kind of cool to then have the clear bottom. But then I say there's, you know, they're usually all red, but they actually have 2 pieces. And this one's also clear on the bottom. So this one says State Fair 1905. Also happens to say Mother. So another souvenir piece. This one was $9.95. So, you know, kind of a low tumbler. It's a little too big to be a toothpick holder. So really just kind of a glass. Unfortunately, it doesn't say which state fair. But kind of a cool piece, and looks great in this red glass vignette. Kind of a different approach, but I wanted to highlight this one piece I saw in this exhibit, or in this booth. It's not the ruby flash glass, but you've got another souvenir piece for Mother. So this one is Salisbury bone china from England. Doesn't have any other information, so I don't necessarily know if it was a souvenir piece or if it was just giftware, but Mother's Day is coming up, so you've got another piece for Mother. Okay, so here we are in another booth. Cool horse bronze there. Thought I knew what this was, but I had to take the stuff off the top and open it up because I wasn't sure. It is a poker chip holder. So I have only ever seen these round. I've never actually seen a rectangular one. So it still has the 2 slots to hold the decks of cards, and then it has obviously enough slots to hold, it looks like these are clay poker chips. So got the cover. It's actually in really good condition. The inside of the cover is a little tears, probably from the sliding up and down on the corners. You can see there's corners of the wood. I don't know if this was a homemade piece, because I look at the side, you can see it's actually 2 pieces of wood that's just been glued together and then cut, with all these things cut out. And it's got a regular wooden bottom. So this might be a handmade, homemade piece. $15.95 is a really good price for it, including the chips. Sometimes the case themselves can go for almost that much. And this is definitely a style that I had not seen before. That's kind of cool. So this is a piece I wanted to highlight. This is in the Treasures Reimagined booth, which was one of my favorite booths over at the Rustic Fox. So they've got a space here. This is, see, vintage textiles, 2-piece set, $7.50, really good price. But the reason I highlight it is some people have asked me when I've shown linens in the past, I'll talk about whether they're machine made or handmade, or sometimes it makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't. And the question is always, well, how do you know? And so this ends up being an example that's fairly obvious once you see it in person. On the front, it's a pretty decent condition. You see there's, some condition issues with the thread, but that's going to happen over time. So that's not necessarily telling. But when you flip it over, no machine would ever do that. So you have somebody who was carrying stitches, was basically in a rush to finish this, possibly, and gives it a very quaint, homemade feel. So, they're doilies, I guess, as opposed to dish towels, so they would be, setting down. You wouldn't always see the back. But that's how you would always, that's the easiest way to tell if it's super clean or if the back looks exactly the way the front does. It was done by machine. Doesn't make it necessarily good, bad, or anyway. This is a case where it's just, you just know someone put their love and, based on that, probably their blood into this. I'm still in the Treasures Reimagined booth, and I finished looking at the linens and turned around and saw this display. So you've got this 3-tiered basket, and throughout the entire basket are these wall pockets. And at least some of these were over at the Rustic Fox, and I was always obsessed with these, and it always promised if I ever did a live sale again at the Rustic Fox, these were going to be on the list, because they are $12. This beautiful rooster in great, looks like great condition. This one looks like it, I don't think it could set up. I think this has to be a wall pocket. Yeah, that one has to be a wall pocket. It'll tip over if I try to set it up. It's not marked, but, definitely it has some age to it. Got the owl one in the back. Ooh, got to check out that white one. So another wall pocket. This one's $15. Again, doesn't appear to be marked, but I would say these are, at least those two are in the era of made in Japan. I'd guess this one as well. This one's actually made in Czechoslovakia. So this is probably possibly between the wars. Let's see, Czechoslovakia. When did they get combined? I think World War I, maybe World War II. I got to look at my history. But it's this great finch, I think, on a nautilus shell, which actually seems a little odd, but this one's only $9.50. Not as colorful as the others, but I actually like this one better. Some really pretty colors in this one. This one's made in Japan, so this has the impressed mark on the back. This one doesn't appear to have a price tag, but all the others have been like 10 to 15. This one's a little bit larger. Another parrot. This one's larger one. It's only 10. Oh, there is an incised mark and pressed mark on this one too. So what does that say? Okay, that's also made in Japan. What's this? Is this a yarn holder or is this a wall pocket? Okay, so this is to be hung on the wall, but if I can hold it without dropping it, It is a string holder. So there's a hole there in the bottom. So you would mount this against the wall. You'd put a small ball of string into the cavity there, string it out through that hole, and you've got this very angry looking cat hanging on your wall so you can pull down your string. So I don't see any maker's mark on this one. Well, I'm not sure if this might be chalkware. It's lightweight though. It's only $10. No, it's ceramic. But that's kind of cool. So along with the other wall pockets, a taller one, about the same tall, though that's kind of cool because it's got the hole where the woodpecker has been. Another mark on it. Another made in Japan mark. This one's $10. So if you ever make it over to past and present shops, you can have a heyday if you like wall pockets. And a whole nother bin in the bottom. I think the apple is probably another string holder. Actually, I don't know. What is that? It's got a worm in it. Yeah, so that's another string holder. It's got the hole down at the bottom. This one's a lot heavier. And that one does appear to be chalkware. We got the more parrots. And this one's kind of cool. It had the family of birds, the big one that I took out. It had the family of birds. And also had the impressed made in Japan. And that one is also only $10. So some great prices on these wall pockets. Make for a great instant collection for a fairly inexpensive price. Very, very cool. So if you've watched some of my videos before, you may have noticed or you may have heard, in a previous life, used to own a quilt shop with my then wife, now ex-wife, and ran a family-owned quilt shop for 10 years. And as a result, I never want to see a quilt again. So I do not carry quilts, but this is one I wanted to highlight because this is something that crosses into the vintage world, into the contemporary world. Because what this is, and you can tell by the edges, makes it a little bit more obvious, this is a quilt sewn together using men's neckties. So they use the bow tie pattern to make the ties, or to make the quilt squares. So that was ingenious in and of itself. But these are all silk ties. And then they use the tail of the ties to create the trim along the border. So what was happening, and this happened when we owned the business, when family members passed away, they would be clearing out the house and they'd find, their grandfather's or their father's old ties. And, back in the day, men would have dozens and dozens and dozens of ties, and you could get them sewn into a quilt. So you're using vintage material, vintage silk ties, to then stitch together into a modern quilt. Now this one, I'm going to say that's a pantograph, so I would say this is a modern quilt. Although, no. Yeah, it's a pantograph. It's the same pattern quilted throughout the whole thing. It appears the border, though, is hand-stitched, which seems super odd, because the rest of it is not. My ex-wife would know more. She was involved in that aspect of things. But anyway, it's just kind of a cool piece. So this is being sold for $110. To me, it's very heavy because you're using the silk from the ties. To me, it's very scratchy. But they used a regular cotton fabric on the back, so you wouldn't have the silk up against your skin. But really, it just ends up being a memory quilt, which is kind of a neat idea. And it's not something you see a lot of, but this is a pretty good example of it. That is probably vintage fabric more recently sewn into a quilt. So this is kind of a cool display I wanted to show. I'm hoping to do a deep dive at some point. I invited the historian of Wilton Cake Company to do a deep dive with me on wedding toppers. So if we can get that coordinated, I'm hoping to see their collection and talk about wedding toppers in general. But this is kind of like a little microcosm of, some just different eras and different trends. So this is a wedding bell, which I guess would sit flat, but then would have this big open thing on the back. So I'm not sure if this was maybe designed to go onto a multi-tiered cake, and this would actually sit against the upper level of the tiers, like this would sit on one of the lower tiers. So that one I'm not sure of. I've not actually seen a wedding topper like this one. This one appears to be glass. So I have a feeling that this is maybe more like an 80s, 90s wedding topper. I don't know enough about them. But usually you can tell by the wedding dresses. So these two have the bride and groom actually on them. So this one you can see has a fitted wedding dress, floor length, and the groom is in tails. So I'm going to assume that this is probably from the 20s or 30s. And then this one is very full crinoline skirt off the shoulder. Or no, I guess it's not off the shoulder. But does it have cap sleeves? Can't really tell what the sleeves are doing there. We're going to just assume that the paint job gave the guy the boutonnieres black. I think that's an oversight. This one, I don't know. This could be 80s. But I have a feeling with those sleeves, I'm thinking 60s. And it's got the short veil. So probably 60s. If anyone has any better idea, or if you got married in these eras, it's very good condition for something that would have been from the 60s. So it may not be as old as I think. This one, other than looking like the Addams Family, again, I'm thinking that one definitely is older. And the whites are not as white as they used to be. This one, again, is in pretty good condition. So maybe this is moving more contemporary. And I can't really tell. I don't know how these are marked because I haven't done the deep dive yet. So anyway, kind of a cool and would make a very cool collection to display no matter how you feel about weddings. So this is a fun display. Don't see this much dollhouse furniture put together in one place very often. Looks like it's probably a pretty good mix of eras, time, and the way some of the materials are made. Most of it appears to be wood. You've got a set of it, Lundby. Not familiar with that particular set. I've sold a handful of pieces before. Kind of fun. Oh, look, Blue's Clues. I don't think that belongs in the dollhouse world, but anyone who recognizes that chair has a kid that was born around the 90s or 2000s. So some pretty cool pieces. Even rugs. Kind of a neat rug. And then even a sheet of miniature wallpaper. Kind of cool. What's this? Oh, this is Colleen Moore's dollhouse. If you're from the Chicago area, this is the dollhouse that's on display at the Museum of Science and Industry. So it's got some of the details. Like it's the size of a room, a normal person's room. It's a massive dollhouse. It's kind of a cool pictorial of it from. It's older. I don't know what year this was made. It's been on display for decades. Kind of a cool addition. So basically I stayed there until they closed. And so I was kind of being rushed out the door because I actually bought something and they still needed to clean up. So I felt kind of bad about that. So if you're ever in the area, please visit them and make me feel less guilty about making them stay open. But I did actually find something for myself. So I enjoyed making the videos and I enjoyed finding the other items. But they, like most vintage stores right now, their Christmas items were on clearance. And I found this. Now, this may not seem special necessarily, like right out of the gate. It is called a shadow dancer. You can see it has the legs and the arms are all jointed, is just plain black on the back. It is signed Edna or Young, just signed Young. But I have a feeling the person who had this in their booth did not know what this was. Admittedly, it's difficult to research this artist because the name is Young. It's pretty popular. But I had done some searching for another piece that actually is going into my Etsy store. Maybe by the time this is posted, it will be in my Etsy store. That is a shadow dancer of a colonial soldier. That one sold pretty much between $40 to $60. And I figured this is Christmas, that yeah, maybe it's seasonal, but it's got to sell for something decent. And even at regular price, this was only priced at $7.95. And then her booth was 40% off. So I got this for $5. I then looked it up when I came home, and this is selling sold comps. And now granted, this is Christmas time, so these were selling at Christmas time, so I may have to wait till next November or December. But the sold comps in the month of December were on the low end were $25 to $30, and on the high end, I think the highest one sold for $60. I paid $5. So pretty happy about it. It's in really good condition. Looks like maybe one of his legs. Actually, no, it does. It actually looks pretty good. From the front of it, it looked like he might have had been bent, but he actually looks good when you look at him from the side. But it's a signed piece. It just goes to show, even at a vintage antique mall, whatever you want to consider, people can't be experts in everything. Like, there's definitely been things that I'm sure I've sold that other people have bought, think they were getting a great deal, and they could go on and sell it to someplace else. Hey, that's what makes the world go round. I'm sure this person didn't have a lot into it, otherwise they wouldn't have been selling it for $7.95. So they made some money. I will make some money, and hopefully, I'll pass it on at a decent price too, that person will be able to enjoy it. So it's kind of cool. So that was my one and only find from past and present, but I did enjoy walking through the store. It is a much smaller store than the Rustic Fox, but it is all pretty much all vintage. There was probably maybe a few too gnomes for my taste, but for the most part, every booth it had heavy vintage in it. So the fact that there was some mixed decor that was contemporary, that makes the world go around. Rustic Fox has moved a lot more toward vintage inspired, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what I do. And so it was kind of nice to go through. Even though it was a much smaller store, Past and Present is a very nice place to hang out. Obviously, you can still get some really good deals. There was a corner curio cabinet that if I was in the market for, I would have picked it up in a heartbeat because it was $15. It was lighted. It was amazing. So you can get some good prices in a lot of different places. So the Past and Present was a fun place to visit. Sorry I forgot to do a closing video from the front of the store, but hey, you got to see what I bought, and thanks for hanging out with me during the video. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you've gotten this far and you're not a subscriber, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. If you ever are visiting the Chicago area, make sure you check out Past and Present in North Aurora, and check out the other vintage stores as well. You've got Vintage Marketplace, which is probably a long walk, but walking distance from Past and Present, the Rustic Fox, as well as Warehouse 55. It's all within a few miles radius, and some amazing pieces, and everything's different. Every place will have something unique for you. So if you're ever in the area, and then give me a shout out if you ever are, because that's where I live. So maybe we could meet go shopping together. You never know. So anyway, thanks for joining the video. Thanks for hanging out with me at Past and Present. Thanks for putting your trust in Trusty Huckster. Bye-bye.
Well, show me a sign if you're wishing me to stay. Otherwise, I say goodbye, finish out the day. And that sunrise in the morning and you got nothing to say. Oh, that's when I'll be headed on my way. Hey, I hope I can abide by your area codes, and I'm bound to wander down that endless road. Give me a good deal on something I can use. Make me an offer that I just can't refuse. When that sunrise in the morning and there's nothing there to do, will probably be the last time I see you. Woo-hoo! I hope I can abide by your area Well, if I had a dime for every time I felt this way, you know I'd have $1 million and a couple bucks in change. Sure was nice to know you. Oh, maybe I'll catch you on the New York train. Or maybe I'll never see your face again.